So I ruined my dad's housewarming party a couple of days ago, but with good reason, so hear me out before making any judgments. I, 26M, lost my mother when I was 5 years old in a freak accident. My dad was single for a really long time and didn't start dating again until I was 13, so he and I were very close for a really long time. And it stayed the same way until he started dating my stepmom, Nora, when I turned 15. They dated for a couple of years before getting married, and I always got this weird feeling that Nora did not really like me. But she always behaved normally around me, so I didn't think much of it since I couldn't exactly start making a fuss about the fact that she did not give me preferential treatment. Anyway, after my dad and Nora got married, we lived together for a very long time until I moved out for college, but when I came back home after graduation to live with my parents until I got a job, things were very different. Nora was very different, and now she openly disliked me. Earlier, I never said anything about these things because I only felt like she did not like me, but when I came back after graduation, she started making it very obvious that she did not approve of me living with them. I tried to talk to my dad about it, but he just told me that she was having a hard time because she had some trouble in her family, and that was it. But I just couldn't take off the feeling that this was because of me, so I tried to move out as soon as possible, and after that, I minimized contact with Nora. Even when I would visit my dad, I would try not to talk to her. So for the past couple of years, I have been in touch with my dad but haven't really had much to talk about Nora since it's very obvious that she doesn't like me. And last week, my dad called me up and told me that they were moving into a new house since they had ended their lease on the old one and had bought a new place. I was quite surprised because my dad's business had not been doing well for quite a few years now, so I didn't think that he would be able to buy a house, but I was happy for him. So I congratulated him and I even offered to help him move into his new place. He took me up on that offer, and so, I was there with him every step of the way. Now, like any other person, I expected some gratitude for that, but later on, I found out from a couple of relatives that they were throwing a housewarming party and I was not even invited. When I confronted my dad about it, he told me that the reason he wasn't sure whether he wanted me at the party or not was because of Nora, unsurprisingly. She believes that this was a fresh start for them as a family and there was no need for my dad to bring his past mistakes. He told me that these were Nora's words, not his, and he obviously did not agree with them, but he could understand where she was coming from and respected her sentiments. So this was the reason he hadn't invited me, and nor had he invited his ex-in-laws, even though he had been on good terms with all of us. He said that he didn't agree with the fact that I was his mistake, but if he was going to follow what Nora was saying, then it obviously meant that he agreed with her statement and I was going to take things that way itself. My dad and I ended up getting into a really bad fight because of that, and I decided that I was going to cut them out of my life because this was really toxic of him. I could not believe that he was taking Nora's side over his own son. When I spoke to my maternal grandparents, even they were very upset because they had always treated my father like their own son after my mother had passed away, and this was not something that they were expecting out of him. They also believed that Nora had changed him, and not in a good way. We don't even know what problem she has with us exactly, but she's pretty stupid because my mother is not even around to compete with her anymore, so she's competing with her family instead. It just goes to show how pathetic she is to be competing for absolutely no reason, since we had always treated her nicely, but she had always had an attitude around us. Anyway, for a couple of days, I did not speak to anybody about this, but then my aunt reached out to me to ask why I was not going to be attending my dad's housewarming party because she believed that having a business retreat on the same day was not a good enough excuse to miss this event. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I told her that that was not the real reason that I was missing this event, it was because I was not even invited. So then both of us were able to figure out that my dad had been lying to all the guests about why I would not be attending so they wouldn't ask questions about it later on, and had been telling everyone that I had a business retreat on the same day and I really wanted to go on that trip, which is why I was skipping his housewarming party. I found that very annoying, and I told my aunt the entire truth. I also told her what Nora had said about me being my dad's past mistake and how he had just gone along with her. I was very hurt, so I didn't keep anything to myself and spilled all the details of the drama. She had heard me out. She was equally upset and told me that she was going to talk to my dad and fix the situation, but I told her not to bother with it because that would just make it worse. It was then that she told me that she would not speak to my dad, but there was something that I could do to make sure that my dad did not get away with the lies that he had been telling everyone. My aunt told me that apparently, my father had been telling everyone that he had bought the house with his own money, but all of us knew that his business had not been doing well and we had our doubts. My aunt had also had her reservations, so she had talked to my dad about it, and my dad had been stupid enough to tell her the truth, that he had actually borrowed a bunch of money from one of his business associates who had recently inherited a lot of money from a relative. I knew this business associate, let's call him Sam, and he had been working with my father for a really long time. They were also very close friends and they had a lot of dinners together in the past until Sam moved away, so my dad apparently told Sam that he needed to borrow some money from him because I needed it for my expenses, and my dad's business had not been doing well, so he couldn't help me, but he did not want to let his son down. And that is how he had convinced Sam to lend him the money, but he really intended on using it to buy a new house because he had saved up enough money and he just needed a bit more. He wanted to buy a new house because then he would be able to save money on rent, and whatever money he owed to Sam, he could just pay it whenever he wanted later after his business had taken off. Unlike rent, which he would have to pay every month, or else he would be evicted. In his head, this was a brilliant idea and he had told my aunt about it, or rather bragged about it to her, and she had told him that this was terribly dishonest of him, but he did not seem to care about it. He had even been telling everyone that he had finally been able to make it on his own because he was a homeowner, but my aunt knew the truth. And the best part was that he didn't have to tell Sam or invite him to the party because he didn't live here. My aunt told me about all of this and said that she wasn't putting any ideas in my head, but if I wanted to get back at my father, I knew what to do. I thought about it for a couple of days, but then I decided to call Sam up because I felt quite insulted by the way that my father had treated me. I was very upset and I couldn't just let this go, so I called Sam, told him everything, and I told him that I needed his help. I wasn't sure if he was going to agree or not, but he agreed to my plan immediately and said that he couldn't even believe that my dad would do such a thing. Apparently, he had been reluctant to help my dad out initially because he had been planning on using his entire inheritance for his kids and wanted to set it all aside for them so he could use his own money for his retirement fund. He also knew that my dad's business was not doing well, so he was not sure how long it would take for my dad to return the money to him. He had been a bit skeptical about lending him money, but my dad had been so insistent and had even become very sentimental while discussing how much he wanted to help me, and yet he wasn't able to, so Sam couldn't decline and ended up giving him the money. And now, to find out that all of that had been a lie and an act to get money out of him just so he could buy a new house and then not even invite me to the housewarming party, his son that he supposedly wanted to help, that was just disgusting. The cherry on top was that a couple of friends had told him that my dad had bought a new house, and when he had confronted my father about it, my dad had lied to him and told him that it was from the money that his wife had saved up, and he had apparently not even used a single dollar from what he had borrowed because that was all for me. Sam was furious at being lied to, and I did not need to convince him much to follow my plan. And days back, on the day of the party, I showed up at my father's house with Sam and he was a bit surprised to see us there, but he did not want to create a scene in front of all the guests, so he just pulled us aside and told us to leave before we did anything. He tried to tell us that he would explain all of this later, but for now, he just wanted us to leave because he did not want things to go south. But that's not what Sam and I were here for, and we told him that we didn't care, that this was exactly what he deserved. So then, we were as loud as we could before making the announcement that we had come there to make, and announced to everyone that contrary to what my father had been telling them, he had in fact, not been able to save up enough money to buy this house on his own. We told him about what he had said to Sam, and how he had borrowed this money from him to help me, and then, not even had the gratefulness to invite me after I had helped him move in just because Nora did not want me around. We exposed all his lies, and his guests were shocked. So once we had done what we had set out to accomplish, Sam and I left and went our separate ways. And since then, the phone calls haven't stopped. My dad keeps trying to call me and I haven't blocked him yet because I just want the satisfaction of knowing that he is pissed. He kept begging me to apologize to all the guests and tell them that I had been kidding because this was seriously ruining his reputation among his friends and family. But I don't really care about it because it's not like he cared about my feelings, so why should I? And moreover, he has not even apologized to me for the way they had behaved with me. He isn't sorry about what he said about me being a past mistake, and he definitely isn't sorry about lying to Sam about everything. I'm sure that he's in a lot of trouble, but he deserves it, so I don't really feel bad for him. There is someone who does feel bad for him, though, and it's my roommate. My roommate and I have been living together for the past 4 years and we are very good friends as well, so he obviously knows what is going on in my life. I had told him everything, and after hearing me out, he told me what I had done was completely unnecessary. He thinks that if my father had made it so clear that he did not want to be in my life, then I should have just cut him off and let it be. But playing into his hands, creating more drama and just being a bad person did not make me any better than him. Or even Nora, for that matter. I thought that it was a very unfair comparison to make, and I told him that he wouldn't even understand what I was going through since he did not have family issues like mine. We ended up fighting about it, and now, for the past couple of days, we also haven't been on speaking terms, and I'm seriously questioning if I did the right thing or not because he does have a point. I could have just left it alone. So Ida for showing up at my dad's housewarming party uninvited and exposing him. Edit. Some people wanted some more context about my relationship with Nora, and honestly, I don't know what else to say. We didn't really have much of a relationship, like I said. I had always maintained that I got a view from her in the beginning, but she used to behave normally with me earlier. The reason I got a weird energy from her was because initially, she was still quite cold with me. But I tried not to read too much into it because she was a new part of our family and she was probably just getting used to having a kid around. However, later on, when I came back from college, she was openly rude to me, and that's what surprised me. My dad never even had anything to say about it, even though it would take place in front of him. I have no idea about the family issues he was talking about as an excuse for Nora's behavior because as far as I know, she is pretty content with her family and they were even there at the housewarming party. My guess is that Nora just started behaving with me badly because she wanted me out of the house and she had gotten used to not having me around since I was away for college for a couple of years and would only come back with the holidays. So she started behaving rudely to drive me out, and she succeeded because my dad allowed her to succeed. Even after that, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but after this, I don't think that's going to work anymore. I honestly have no idea why Nora has a problem with me because I have never given her any reason to be insecure. Yet, she somehow is. I don't know how pathetic you have to be for that, but it is what it is. And as for my aunt, she and I have always been very close, and I'm not surprised that she chose to tell me about what my father had confided in her, regarding the way he got the money for the house. She has always been very righteous, and thankfully, she is nothing like my father. She was pretty much the only maternal figure in my life after my mother passed away, and even though no other relative reached out to me to ask me why I would not be attending the housewarming party, she did. The reason she did not bring up anything about Sam or try to expose my father herself was because if she did, that would create a lot of drama between her and my grandparents, and she did not want that. I think that's fair enough, to be honest. I have never really gotten along with my paternal grandparents anyway, so this doesn't really make much of a difference. Update 1. Hey, so I decided to speak to my roommate since it has been 3 days since I made my post, and even then, we haven't been able to talk to each other. He's a really good friend of mine and I don't want to lose him over something like this, so I felt like I had to talk to him, and I explained how betrayed I felt by my father when he treated me like this, and I did not expect him to understand because he came from a relatively happy family, but for me, it sucks. I thought that he would understand because I was trying to have a heart-to-heart conversation with him, but he told me that I was being petty and my behavior had been very juvenile according to him. Even after I tried to explain myself to the best of my abilities, he did not seem to understand, and the fight just got worse somehow. Eventually, he just told me to my face that he was not interested in being friends with someone like me, who was only looking to create drama out of nothing. He told me that if I couldn't even be loyal to my father, then he shouldn't expect any sort of loyalty from me as a friend. I thought it was a ridiculously stupid and asinine thing to say, and I told him that I was going to end the lease on this apartment by the end of this month, and then we would be free to go our separate ways. He had been very sympathetic to me when he had first learned that my father had not invited me to his housewarming party even after I had helped them move in, but suddenly, he had pulled a total 180. I feel really bad about it, but I'm not going to tolerate this kind of disrespect. So I have spoken to a couple of my other friends, and I have started looking for other apartments nearby. Anyway, I had been planning to move out and live separately by the end of this year, and now, it appears that I might do it earlier than I expected. So that was whatever happened with my roommate, and now, coming to what's going on with my family. My father had been trying to call me relentlessly and get in touch with me for the past couple of days after the incident, but I did not respond. I think he got the hint and realized that I was not going to help him out. So for the past few days, he has not called or texted, or tried to get in touch with me. Nora has though. She texted me a couple of days back to let me know that I was a horrible human being and I was a complete disappointment to my father. I texted her back saying that my father was also a complete disappointment to me, so I think it's equal. After that, she didn't text me. My aunt let me know that the entire family is against my father right now because even though he has been insisting that Sam and I came up with a bunch of lies to ruin his reputation, nobody really believes that because everyone knew that his business had been in shambles, so there was no way he would be able to afford this house, and he was definitely lying. My grandparents are very upset with me because even though what my father did was incredibly wrong, they think that I should have confronted him in person instead of airing out our dirty linen in public. Lucky for me, I don't really care what they think, so they can be pissed as they want to. We have never had a good relationship because they are pretty uptight and are more conscious about their image than how they really are as people. So we haven't had much contact in the past couple of years, and now, I don't think I'm gonna speak to them again. Anyway, Sam and I went our separate ways. We did not talk for a couple of days. We didn't really have anything to discuss, but yesterday, Sam told me that my father had finally reached out to him. And even in a situation like this, my father had the audacity to act like he had been the victim here. He was claiming that he had never expected Sam to stab him in the back like this after they had been friends for so long, and tried to make it seem like I had been lying to him and manipulating him. He claimed that I had indeed asked him for help, and that's why my father had asked Sam for the money, but now, I was going back on my word because Nora had a problem with me since apparently I was always nasty with her, and I was pissed at both of them, which is why I wanted to ruin his reputation so badly. But now, since it had become such a big deal, he would try to return everything that he had borrowed by the end of this year. I think he should have done that anyway, regardless of whether it has become a big deal or not, but my father obviously has no pride or self-respect. Thankfully, Sam did not fall for that act and told him that after the long friendship that they had had, he had also believed that my father would be honest with him at the very least. But clearly, even that was too much to expect of him. Sam did not interact with my dad much. He just told him that he wanted his money back or my dad would be hearing from his lawyer. I think he does have a contract. He was wise enough to get my dad to sign the paperwork, and my dad can get into trouble if he doesn't live up to his word, so I'm glad that finally, he will be facing the consequences. Update 2. Hi, so it's been 1 month since I posted here and I have moved out. I blocked my ex-roommate on every social media platform because I really don't want anything to do with him anymore. The last couple of weeks that we were together before we ended the lease on our apartment were pretty much the worst for me. It was bad enough that we were not talking to each other, but after a while, he even started acting like I was Medusa or something and wouldn't even look at me, and that was really hurtful because we had been friends for a really long time and it felt like he didn't even value that. But it is what it is, I couldn't change that, and so I had to leave. On the day that I left the apartment, he did not even say goodbye to me, and that was when I knew that I had to cut this guy out of my life entirely. It was hard, but I had to do it for my own good, and most of my friends agreed with my decision. So that was what went on with my roommate, and the same kind of thing is going on with my family as well. I have not had any contact with my father after that last incident, and the only person who has kept in touch with me from my family is my aunt. Everyone else is not speaking to my dad, but they're not speaking to me either, which doesn't even make sense because it's not like I did anything wrong. My aunt says that it's because of my grandparents, because they think that even if my father made a mistake, I was equally wrong for bringing all of this up in public with Sam just to humiliate my dad, and they have been brainwashing all the other relatives into thinking that I am just as wrong as my father in this situation. And was really sad that most of my other relatives have been stupid enough to believe that as well. I don't have anything to say about that, to be honest. I had a good relationship with most of these people in the past, but my childhood is gone now, and I guess the attachment that these people had to leave. Now, only my mother's side of the family treats me like one of their own, and I'm happy with that. And of course, my aunt will always have my back. She has also cut her parents off along with my dad because she realized that she really doesn't need their validation anymore. If I can do without it, so can she. I'm content with life right now, if I'm being honest, and I am honestly much better off without my family. Update 3. Hey, it has been 2 weeks since my last update, and the reason I'm back here so soon is because my dad and Nora tried to contact me again a couple of days ago. Both of them texted me to ask if I could meet them, but I just blocked them and ignored it. After I did that, they showed up at my workplace during lunch hours, and I did not want them to embarrass me by throwing a fit in the lobby, so I told the receptionist to have them wait there, and quickly I took them out of there to a nearby restaurant, so I wouldn't have to deal with them around my coworkers. I was obviously very embarrassed already because I had not expected them to show up at my place of work, and I kept berating them because no matter what happened, this was a serious violation of my privacy and I did not like this at all. At least they had the good sense to apologize for it, but they told me that it was necessary for them to reach out to me. Once we were seated in the restaurant, they told me that they were reaching out to me only because they wanted to apologize, and they realized that they had treated me really badly. Nora confirmed what I already believed about her, that she had always been jealous of the fact that my dad had been so close to me, and it just made her feel like he was still very attached to his late wife, which is why she had tried to ruin our relationship, and my dad apologized for getting carried away and acting like a fool. They told me that I did not have to start talking to them, but they just wanted to let me know that they were sorry. So I told him that I accepted their apologies, but for now, I don't want anything to do with them because I'm finally happy and I don't want them to ruin it. I thought that they were going to get mad or something, but to my surprise, they were actually cool with it. They told me that I could take my time and they were fine with that, so we ended the lunch and they even covered the entire cost of it before leaving. I don't fully trust them yet, and I don't think I ever will, but I'm glad that they apologized and this was resolved. I feel like I got the closure that I needed to completely move on from this. However, that still does not mean that I'm gonna forgive him wholeheartedly and get back in touch with him, because I really don't want that right now. I'm gonna take my time, think about it, and maybe a year or two from now, I might get back in touch with them if I want to. For now, like I said in my last update, I'm very happy with the life that I'm leading.